Hi everyone, my name is Chrissy Lampert and I founded, manage, create an online community called the Sustennial Network, and it's basically just a place, a social channel if you will, to celebrate the sustainable millennial lifestyle. And so really anyone can be a Sustennial who kind of believes in that. I call myself that, like on my Instagram handle, but I feel like part of the Sustennial lifestyle, whatever we want to call it, is, I don't know, having like a drive to educate themselves about like what they're purchasing, where does it come from, what is their impact, things along those lines. And I watched this movie during quarantine called Dark Waters, I think it was. It's with Mark Ruffalo, who happens to be a huge environmentalist. And I kind of feel like it was similar to Aaron Brockovich. I remember watching that movie way back when, and I was too young to like fully understand it. But now, with this view on it, the movie was essentially about, and I'll try not to spoil anything, but they learned that this material, Teflon, being used, to coat cookware, basically was producing really toxic excess in a community that surrounded the factory, basically. And they tried to fight it. And long story short, it really just illuminated how much power CPG companies have. And so this is no shot against CPG companies, but it's just something, and it was a lesson for me, like, hey, I kind of do need to pay attention to, what are the ingredients in the products that I'm consuming, because I do want to have more knowledge, and I don't want to kind of rely on the government to help me decide like what I want to put on my body, things along those lines, if that makes sense. So the first step for me was I started to think about everything I put on my skin. So I am not a beauty expert. I literally go to CVS, buy like cost-effective cleansers, makeup. There's not much variety to my beauty routine, let's just say that. So CVS is the place I go. I wanted to understand, like, okay, out of all of the cleansers that I'm looking at, which one looks the most natural? And furthermore, being that it looks natural, what are the ingredients behind that product? Is it aligning with that natural mentality, marketing message, image that I'm seeing here? Or is it more chemicals, and what even are those chemicals? So that's just personally for me, like I apply cleanser every day. I've had to use cleanser my whole adult life because acne is just so annoying, and I have it like cystically on my back. So it just hasn't gone away. Anyway, so for the sake of today, what we'll be doing is I just picked Aveeno, Positively Radiant, picked it off of the shelf, took a look at all of the ingredients that it had. And so we'll just be quickly walking through what the heck are these. I will preface this by saying, like, I am not a doctor. I am not a dermatologist. I am simply a good Googler, basically. And that's how I form like most of my heuristics, most of my knowledge. It literally just takes a couple of Google searches, understanding like, okay, this is a government site, this is not .com, this is legit, scientific, things like that. So that's the mindset that I had going into this. Some of these ingredients, extremely difficult to find out what they actually were. We're talking like 7 clicks for something that actually made sense. Some super easy, but we'll kind of walk through each of these, and you can kind of highlight like, okay, this is bad, this is not something I want. And yeah, hopefully, again, it'll just be a little bit of an education. A lot of these are used in like most cleansers too, that you just see on the shelf. So you can start to say, oh, okay, don't want that. So we can see long list here. Let's dive in. We'll start from water and we'll end with citric acid. Okay, I think I skipped water because we all know what water is. So second ingredient, glycerin. By the way, I'm not very good at pronouncing a lot of these, but glycerin, non-toxic, used for antimicrobial and antiviral properties, good to go. This is seen in like so many, cosmetic products, soaps, things like that. So non-toxic. As we move forward, we see hydrogenated castor oil. So I saw castor oil, was really happy because I've been starting to use castor oil on its own to cleanse my skin. Even though it's oil, it doesn't clog your pores, and it actually cleans them really well from a natural sense. It's also used to naturally treat scars, which is great too. So this one's all good. Okay, LAURYL glucoside. This is a biodegradable ingredient. Oh yeah, that's great. Derived from coconut oil and sugar. Only thing is, start to look in coconut oil. Does coconut oil clog our pores? The answer is yes, it does. I have really bad acne on my back. I noticed that I was using a conditioner that had coconut oil, and I kind of started to like move my hair over so that it wouldn't touch, things like that. But again, do I want coconut oil in my cleanser? I don't know at this point if I could easily find out that, oh, it does clog pores. So the next material ingredient, PEG-16 soy sterol. Okay, so produced from distilled soybean oil, essentially put into a process with this chemical called ethylene oxide. Ethylene oxide is used to make antifreeze and is a carcinogen according to the Environmental Protection Agency. Ethylene oxide, believe it or not, you hear all the time like, oh, there's certain things banned in the EU, but they're not banned in the US. This is one of those. So they put soy in there. Like I said, it is soy and it is mixed with ethylene oxide. Thing to note, soybean oil is one of those ingredients as well that is comedogenic. I don't know if I'm saying that right, honestly, but it clogs your pores too. So now that's two ingredients, coconut oil and soy. Not good for the pores. Okay, we can see the pronunciation is getting like harder and harder. So let's try to do this. Acrylates, C10, 30, ALKYL, acrylate, CROSSPOLYMER. I was never great at science, but anyways, this is, again, just doing some research. This is a word for silicone. So a lot of people don't want to see the word silicone in their products, so they make it a little bit harder to decipher. Clearly, you can see that here. And silicone is really bad for the skin. I had no idea. The easiest metaphor, I came across in my research is like, you can think of silicone as plastic wrap on your skin. And so what I mean by that is the intent is good, right? Like you want to lock in the moisture, but what happens is bad. So like, it's just like plastic wrap. It like goes onto your skin, moisture is locked in, but it also traps dirt, dead skin cells, like anything that clogs your pores. And upon reading this, it was like, okay, if you use this every single day, it can lead to prolonged acne because everything's trapped. So I was like, oh gosh, that's not good either. Okay, moving on to the next, PHENOXYETHANOL. Great. This is a synthetic preservative. It is, remember that ethylene oxide from a couple of ingredients ago? That's here too. So phenol is treated with ethylene oxide, which is that carcinogen, toxic to the kidneys, nervous system, and liver, to kind of prove that like, hey, this is sketchy. This was kind of in like, sorry to say this, but like it was in a nipple cream that like not young mothers, but like new mothers, I guess you could say, would use. And the FDA put a warning on it because if babies are exposed to that and ingest that through their mouth, they saw that it could cause vomiting, diarrhea, dehydration, and central nervous system implications in infants. So, seems like something's up with that one too. All right, so let's give this one a try. COCAMIDOPROPYL betaine. So this is a mixture from coconut oil, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce that one. Let's call it DMAPA for short. basically this was a really tough one to research. There was nothing super straightforward about this. The only thing I was able to find was that someone put in a request, or National Cancer Society did it for themselves, and they said, hey, can you check out what this is? They found that it's corrosive to the skin, but they also did a really intensive study with rats who were exposed to, you know, this basically, DMAPA. And I think it was like some of the female rats died after having been exposed to it. I think after like 11 days, all the way up, 14 days up to 28 days. And they also saw that when they were exposed to that DMAPA for that period of time, they experienced swollen abdomen, impaired respiration, in addition to like the rats dying. So nothing really great on that one either that I could find. So a little weird. This one, you guys may have heard of parabens. Parabens basically can be tacked on to the end of a lot of words. They can be, you know, said by themselves, but methylparaben is a paraben. So what does that mean? Well, again, intent is good. It's used to be antifungal and a preservative to make, you know, the skin cleanser last. It's easily absorbed through the skin. So, you know, you want the cleanser to go in your skin and work, but at the same time, I started to research what is the paraben and why are they bad, and it's a really destructive hormone disruptor. I didn't even know what the heck a hormone disruptor was until like maybe a year and a half ago. I started to get really bad anxiety. I would have like panic attacks, and I found out that was never able to verify, but I started to look into it. My hormones were really out of whack because of the birth control that I was on. So why does that happen? Okay, well, parabens have the ability to mimic estrogen. And so when you have too much estrogen in your body, that's when your hormones are not in balance. And in addition to that, they can spur the growth of certain breast cancer cells. So you could be at a higher risk for breast cancer with, you know, intake of parabens because they are producing more estrogen. So really scary. A lot of research about this, easily accessible if you're, you know, curious to learn more about parabens. This one is like all good. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. We'll call it BG. Used to give the product thin consistency and low order of toxicity, according to the World Health Organization and FDA. The next ingredient is hydrogenated jojoba oil. I like that word, jojoba. Never even heard of that, but essentially it's a desert shrub. So very natural from that standpoint. Okay, this is crazy too. So basically federal labeling went out and says that, all right, if you are adding an ingredient to make your product smell better or to mask that of a bad one, you only have to write and label it as fragrance. So there are technically over 3,000 ingredients that are all nestled under that label that we have no idea. I have no idea, can't say for sure, again, if this is in the Aveeno product, but one of the most popular fragrances is called styrene, and it is a known human carcinogen. So very scary whenever you see fragrance, not kind of knowing what that is behind closed doors. This is TETRASODIUM EDTA. This is not a carcinogen. This is just used to bind certain things and make the wash more stable. Sodium hydroxide. We have all heard this growing up in like science class when, you know, maybe we did, I don't even know. I always think about the Coca-Cola experiment with the liter of Coca-Cola and the Mentos. I don't know. This word reminds me of that for some reason. But it's a co-product of chlorine. So you mix this with chlorine and you get chlorine bleach. You know, as you can infer, it can cause irritation and is a little tough on the eyes. Next is soybean. This is natural, but at the same time, I found this amazing chart on Herbal Dynamic Beauty, which I can provide link to, whatever it may be. And soybean, like I was saying earlier, is very comedogenic. I can't say the word, but clogs your pores. So I'm like, man, not great. Protein used to combine water with layer of the skin. Citric acid, our last ingredient. I saw this and I kind of thought about, remember like Clean and Clear Morning Burst that we all used when we were like 13 years old, 14, I remember? It would wake you the heck up. Like you used that in the morning and you were super alert. So it felt super fresh on your skin. It made it feel really tight. I'm researching citric acid, and it's natural, which is awesome, and it's used to promote that feeling of intensity after washing your face, skin peeling, and regrowth. So definitely a great ingredient to have for a cleanser. So now we have finished our ingredient list. I know that was like a little bit quick, but we saw that there's some sketchy things in there, sketchy to the average consumer for sure. So now that we have a couple of minutes of awareness, education, now I wanted to provide just a couple of alternatives that you guys can explore on your own. Look into, again, like what would make the most sense for your skin. I am not a dermatologist. I still have bad acne, like haven't fixed that issue, but I do feel good in knowing that there are different resources that I can look at to make better decisions. So for me, I really am trying to take a better stance when it comes to ensuring that my hormones are balanced so that my mood is good, I feel okay mentally, you know, things along those lines. And so parabens for me, I'm like, okay, those are not good for my situation. I want to ensure that I move forward selecting products that don't have them. Well, you go to the site Folane for anyone who hasn't heard of them. It's like a marketplace. They also have their own brand. And anything that you find on their website doesn't have any of these chemicals. And they have that list basically when you enter the site. It's super easy to get to in a couple of clicks. So you know right off the bat, you choose a cleanser, it's not going to have any of this. Perfect. And it's also a great resource too, just to go to, if you do see something sketchy, you can come here and say, oh, okay, 1,4-dioxane, that's a byproduct. Oh, there we go, ethylene oxide. Okay, so yeah, it'll all kind of come together and you're like, great, I definitely don't want any of these. I'm going to move forward and select something from Folane. So there, I forget if they have physical stores, but really easy to get to online. So ClearStem is another brand that I'm a huge fan of. I played field hockey with one of the founders back in high school. She's a couple years older than me. And she does a lot of different things. Her main brand that she works on is ClearStem. She also has a podcast. She brought on a doctor to talk about hormone health, birth control, things like that. So she started my journey on that route from having been exposed to that doctor. And then she developed with her co-founder an entire skincare line with no hormone disruptors at all. So I love that. They're very transparent and educational about like, hey, you might be using something that's clogging your pores. They have an entire list on their site, so you can actually search if you're curious about something that you're currently using, search in here and see whether or not it is clogging your pores. So great from a resource perspective, and then extremely transparent about what their ingredients are. We can see them here. You can click down on their site and really read into that and see again whether or not that would make sense for your skin. I love this. It's super different from what you're seeing traditionally at CVS on the shelf ingredient-wise. And we can see it definitely, again, appears and is more natural than what we just went through in the last couple set of ingredients. This is another brand that I think is amazing. I think for me personally, now knowing that like coconut oil and olive oil may clog my pores, I don't know that I'd use it for a face wash, and I don't think that they market that as well. They really are like body washes and just things to have in your bathroom. that are biodegradable, extremely natural, extremely transparent. They're very sustainable, carbon neutral. So from an overall brand perspective, I think that if you're looking for body wash, things like that, definitely check out Bathing Culture, and you can just easily understand the ingredients. Like, we can really kind of see now, okay, I understand what all these mean. I can pronounce them, versus, what we saw earlier. And then, just to kind of like summarize, I feel like for me, whenever I make a change, it's kind of like, okay, I'm now aware watching Dark Waters that like, maybe like, government, whatever, maybe they're not in my best interest, or maybe some things slip through the cracks, or maybe I just don't understand. And I really want to educate myself more for myself as a consumer in terms of what I'm putting on my body. And then I also kind of, from there, want to have some sort of exposure to alternatives. So learning about Folane, learning about, Bathing Culture, learning about Clearstem. From there, I can say, okay, I want to try a couple of these. So that will enable kind of like my shift in behavior. Couple of things can happen after that. We'll start with the bottom two. So, hey, start using, Folane cleanser. I'm like, oh wow, this is like just as expensive. It's really not that bad from a pricing perspective. My skin looks great, but I can't really get it at CVS, where I usually go to get all my other stuff. So convenience is kind of lacking in the long term, which kind of stinks. I don't love to order things on Amazon or online in general, so I'm not sure. I might say, oh, I use the Folane cleanser. I hope this doesn't happen. My skin looks worse than it did before, and now I have to do a separate order for it every couple months. So if either of these things happen, typically that behavior will not last, and it will not become the norm for us as consumers. I personally believe that to enable long-term behavior shift to more sustainable lifestyles and make these sustainable brands the norm, so to say, they definitely have to add value. So it's definitely either like, oh my God, my skin looks better, or wow, now I have the satisfaction that I'm ordering a clean brand. I feel good about what I'm putting on my skin. Really, any type of tangible or intangible value that you experience needs to be better than your previous product. And then from there, I think it either has to be more convenient for you to purchase it and use it, or just the same. So what I mean by that is like, makeup wipes are very bad for the environment from the research that I've done. And when I looked into alternatives, it was like, oh, okay, reusable bamboo makeup wipes. In terms of convenience, makeup wipes are extremely convenient. Like, they're so easy, throw it out. I found that by doing bamboo makeup wipes, reusable ones, it was the same amount of convenience. I literally just took it out of my thing. I used it, put it back. Instead of a trash can, it was back in a bag, and then I just put that back into the laundry, and it was like fine. So yeah, hopefully, you can explore some alternatives and they will add value, add convenience factor, or just have the same amount of convenience. But anyways, curious to hear your guys' thoughts on that model as well. I just look back at like, hey, look at all of the changes like I've personally made, and why? It's because they added value and they are more convenient or the same amount of convenience. And I think that, like I said before, those will really be the only mechanisms that will shift large consumer behavior and make great sustainable change, if that makes sense. So anyways, here are all the ingredients. Here is what I used in terms of like research and where I found some of the things that I put onto the slides. If you're curious, I will have a blog post as well, so you can like go in and like click through these. But yeah, thank you all for listening, and I hope it was helpful.